Hello, everyone. Welcome. Thank you all for joining. We're going to get started in a few moments. We are just waiting on folks to join us from the waiting room. Thank you all for joining. My name is Patrick. I'm one of the executive board members here with Indivisible, Illinois. I'm going to hand it over to Marcy to introduce herself and the rest of the board.
Hi, my name's Marcy. I am also on the Indivisible Illinois Exec Board, and I live in Champaign. I'm a member of Champaign County Indivisible. I'm going to hand it over to Linda.
Hi, I'm Linda. I live in the DuPage area and also on the board, and I'm also on leadership with Indivisible DuPage. Jeanette?
Hi, I'm Jeanette Quirk. I'm with Indivisible West Suburban Chicago and the Indivisible Illinois Board and the Indivisible Chicago Alliance.
Hi, I'm Cecilia. I'm Cecilia. I'm from KZ, Illinois. I am with Eastern Illinois Indivisible, and I'm also on the leadership with NWSOFA.
Hi, I'm Melanie Fager, and I am also a part of State Line Indivisible, which is in the greater Rockford area.
Fantastic. All right, so we've got a great panel today. We're going to be talking about organized labor and how we can support organized labor and what the labor movement means just for all of us. So we're going to hear from a few great panelists who we will introduce momentarily. But before we get to the panelists, we want to go ahead and do a few brief announcements and we'll get started. So I'm going to start things off with Marcy. I believe you were on mute, Marcy.
Hi, everybody. I'm going to tell you about an exciting program that's going to be going on in Champaign-Urbana the weekend of July 17th to July 20th. For those of you who don't know, July 17th through 19th is called Good Trouble Lives On Weekend of Action, and it's national. It is supposed to be it's supposed to be for honoring John Lewis since he died on July 17th of 2020. And in Champaign-Urbana, we're going to have Good Trouble Lives On Weekend of Action. That's going to be mostly teach-ins. We're going to have a resource fair both on Friday and on Monday. The teach-ins, and those are going to be at the Champaign Public Library. The teach-ins are going to be at the Spurlock Museum, which is awesome. And we're also going to end with a mayor's town hall from the mayors of Champaign-Urbana and Rantoul. There are 15 coalition groups that are working on this. Indivisible Illinois is in that coalition. Champaign County Indivisible, it was the spearhead for this, but also Indivisible Vermilion County is also in on it. Some of the teach-ins are going to be on voting rights, and how elections are conducted in our county, because the county clerk is going to be there. About gun violence, we have a Champaign County African American Heritage Trail that they're going to talk about. There's somebody that's going to talk about CU reparations. As I said, there's going to be a mayor's town hall, and then the Spurlock Museum itself is going to be having a tour of their newest exhibit, Unfinished Revolutions: Living Stories of American Rights. That is going to be awesome. And as I said, there's going to be a resource fair on that Friday and that Monday. If you live in the Champaign County area, please come. And if you don't, we are going to be live streaming from the Spurlock Museum on that Saturday and that Sunday. It's going to be really awesome. The ACLU is going to be speaking, and League of Women Voters as well. And the League of Women Voters are going to be registering voters. Anyway, back to you, Patrick.
All right, I'm going to talk with you all a little bit about our road to November. We know how important this upcoming election cycle is, and we have to do everything that we can in order to take back the House and the Senate. We are lucky that we live here in Illinois, where we have all of our constitutional officers support our values. They're Democrats that support our values. We have a supermajority in our state House and our state Senate. We definitely want to make sure that we protect those wins that we've gained, but we also want to pick up a few additional wins. So we want to support our surrounding states as well as one district here in Illinois. So we're going to be doing carpool canvassing as well as phone banking into battleground districts in the states that surround us. So we're going to be going into Iowa. We're going to be going into Wisconsin. We're going to be going into Michigan. And we also have one district here in Illinois that is our best chance of a pickup in Illinois, and that is the Illinois 16th Congressional District. We're going to be doing some canvassing out into that district. We're going to be supporting Paul Nolly, who's running for Congress in that area. We've actually got a canvass that is taking place this weekend. So there are two locations that you can join us from. You can join us from the Democratic Party of DuPage County office. We're going to be leaving there Saturday at 9 a.m. If you'd like to carpool with us and you're in Chicago or the Collar counties, you can meet us there and drive down to Bloomington with us. Or if you're from anywhere else in the state, you can meet us in Bloomington at noon. So we're going to go ahead and put those links into the chat. This is our best chance of a congressional pickup in Illinois, and we know with all of the redistricting that's happened in the southern states and the mapping and other things that they've done to make it a little harder, we need to pick up every win we can in blue states and in battleground states that surround us. So join us for that, and it's part of our road to November. We're also going to be doing phone banking and postcards and other things in 2 states as well, so be on the lookout for that. All right. I'm going to hand it over to Linda, who's going to give you one last announcement, and then we're going to go ahead and start with the panel.
All right, thanks, Patrick. So tomorrow, if you're not tired of being on Zoom tonight, Indivisible Evanston, and we are co-hosts with them. They're having a panel discussion about how we win the midterms. So engaging youth and extending outreach. So you're going to hear from a variety of organizations that are working on actions for leading up to November, like we are doing. Patrick will talk a little bit at tomorrow's event also. So if you want to get ideas about how can I get involved, this would be a great place to come tomorrow and just see what everybody's working on. Thanks, Patrick.
Thank you. We're going to hand it over to Marcy, who's going to introduce our first speaker now.
Okay, just a second. Give me a moment here. I apologize. Okay. Okay. Congresswoman Nikki Budzinski represents Illinois' 13th Congressional District and is a lifelong advocate for working families. A graduate of University of Illinois Urbana-Champaign, Nikki began her career in the labor movement, securing better wages and protections for essential workers. She later served in state government, leading efforts to raise Illinois' minimum wage and expand rural broadband. At the White House, she helped implement the American Rescue Plan and launched the Made in America office. Elected to Congress in 2023, Nikki serves the House Committees on Agriculture and Veterans Affairs, where she is the ranking member of the Subcommittee on Technology Modernization. She also serves as the Vice Chair of the Congressional Labor Caucus and Chair of the DCCC's Labor Council. Nikki is also Vice Chair of Policy for the New Democratic Coalition, working to bridge partisan divides with practical bipartisan solutions. She is running again to deliver on her promises of lowering costs, bringing home dollars to these communities, and of course, pushing back against the Trump administration's attack on working families. Please welcome Congresswoman Nikki Budzinski.
Thank you so much. Thank you, my good friend Marcy, and thank you to Patrick. Thank you to Indivisible Illinois for all that you all are doing as we march every day closer to the November election and the change that we so desperately need. I often say it's taking back our country for working families in November is what we're all focused on. I do want to say hello to the folks that I'm proud to represent in the 13th Congressional District in Central Illinois. For those of you that might be up north, I'm the most Southern Democrat in our delegation. I get to represent communities where Marcy's from, like Champaign, but also I see my friend Justin from Madison County on. So I represent almost from Indiana to the Missouri border. So it's a really big district, but just adding on a little bit about what's at stake in this election and what grounds the work that I do in Congress. Marcy mentioned that I'm a vice chair for the Labor Caucus. caucus. I am still to this day a union dues paying member. A shout out to Stephen Campbell on this, who you're going to hear from, a member of UFCW Local 881. I worked as the national political director for the UFCW for 7 years in Washington. I also worked for the firefighters union for 3 years and then the laborers. So I'm very grounded in the work of the labor movement. And we all know on this call that the work that the movement does, and you're going to hear from the great Bill Luby, who I also see on the call, the work of labor in getting the vote out, getting union members out, is going to make a huge difference in the November election. I was very focused on that, getting union members out to vote when I worked in the movement, and I'm now, as a member of Congress, still focused on that same work. There has been an all-out assault on working people since the Trump administration has come into office. We have seen over 30 different agencies, public sector workers losing their abilities to collectively bargain, taking away any public sector workers' rights to arbitration or representation in the workplace. You are seeing a National Labor Relations Board, which for the labor movement is foundational when we're doing organizing campaigns. To have an organizing campaign, if we're challenging an employer in it, we have to have a good NLRB, which we had under President Biden. We have since lost that. And, I will point out, I think what was said earlier, we're very lucky in the state of Illinois, where because of the work of the labor movement, we've enshrined workers' rights into our state's constitution. Which, as you know, for working people, a collective bargaining agreement is the best way into the middle class. That's what allows workers in this country to negotiate for good wages and benefits and working conditions. And oftentimes, as I work for Governor Pritzker, I help lead his $15 minimum wage. That's wonderful, but the labor movement negotiates for benefits and wages that are well beyond that. And so they are really the bedrock of the middle class. And when you see Trump attacking our collective bargaining rights, when you see what he's doing with billionaires and millionaires giving handouts, and then in exchange cutting critical programs like Medicaid and SNAP, and the erosion of workers' rights in general, you are seeing and feeling all of the impacts of that. What's really important when we take back the House majority is that we pass legislation like the PRO Act. And I'm sure others on this call will talk about this, but the PRO Act will help give a level playing field for working people in a workplace that say, I'd like a union. I'd like a union to represent me. And right now, it's a very unfair, unlevel playing field for organizing campaigns. It's very challenging to win organizing campaigns. And then once a union has organized and won that campaign, getting that first contract is almost as difficult as the organizing campaign itself. What the PRO Act does is simplify, streamlining that process, making it fairer for workers to join a union. That's something that will be a top priority for House Democrats when we take back the House majority. But I want to also say that the work that we're doing in the state of Illinois, in a district like mine, it's important that we don't wait until November to start taking actions. And we are speaking out. I'm actually a part of a press conference just this week with Congressman Frank Mervan from the northwestern side of Indiana, where we're standing up for the steel workers who have been locked out for weeks at a BP refinery, demanding that the CEO come back to the table to negotiate for a good contract. I'm standing this week with the Blue Green Alliance, who is working with our steel workers, our brothers and sisters in the labor movement, partnering with the environmental movement on what we're going to be doing together to decarbonize and get us back on track in addressing our climate crisis. I've also been speaking out, and I would say we had one bit of good news on fair contracts, which was actually, if you've heard of a discharge petition, because in the House minority, we have very few levers that we can use to actually control the House floor. One that we have is actually a discharge petition, which basically says if we get half of the House to vote and say, yes, they signed the discharge petition, we can bring that legislation to the floor and circumvent Speaker Mike Johnson. We were able to do that just 2 weeks ago on a fast contracting piece of legislation that I was the co-sponsor of, which would help to expedite union elections. It actually passed out of the House and is now in the Senate. So I say this to say, one, there is so much at stake for working people. Two, a House majority and hopefully a Senate majority will make a huge difference for working people and helping us to strengthen at the federal level workers' rights, union rights. That's what's at stake. And the candidates that you're supporting, I'm sure, believe in that. And that's something that we need to be talking about at the doors. And then Democrats in November need to lead with a vision of what we're going to do after November to help working people. And one of the best things we can do is to strengthen the labor movement so workers have rights in their jobs and in their workplaces to get good wages. And we are fighting to protect and rebuild the middle class. So those are kind of my three, the way I look at the work we're doing in Congress, which we have so much to do. But I want to say again, a huge thank you to Indivisible Illinois for the great work you're doing in electing good people that understand the importance of the labor movement. It's so important and really what's at stake as we look ahead to November. So thank you for letting me say hello, Marcy, and thank you to Indivisible Illinois. I appreciate it.
Anyway, since Congresswoman Budzinski has to leave early, we'll have her questions now. So if anyone has questions, please put them in the chat. I have a question actually before that starts though. If both houses flip, how can Congress work to make sure that workers' rights are supported?
Well, the first thing we can do is pass the PRO Act. Like I said, the PRO Act is the biggest piece, most important piece of legislation. I think I don't want to speak for Bill Luby, who's here for the Illinois AFL-CIO, but I believe for all of the labor movement, passing the PRO Act would help workers more easily organize their workplace and then get a contract. Those are the two things that we can do to strengthen the labor movement. This type of legislation has historically passed the House, but it's run into roadblocks with the 60 vote threshold in the Senate. So this bill has been by other names for those of you that might have followed the Employee Free Choice Act, which was almost now maybe 20 years ago, but it's still trying to get to the root issue, which is we need to level the playing field for working people that want to join a union to elevate their wages and their benefits.
Yeah, thank you. I'm going to pass this on to Melanie or Linda, or who am I going to pass
It'll
this
be me, Marcy.
Okay, okay.
Okay. We have one question unless one gets added while I'm talking, which is I have this question a lot. How do people find out who's funding the candidates in a publicly accessible and reliable way? Where's the best place to say, hey, I want to support this person,
Yeah.
but who's funding them? How do we find that out?
Well, the most probably direct place is on the FEC website, but I would also probably direct you to Open Secrets as well. I think both of those websites are places where you're going to find out factually who's supporting who.
And that's directly to the candidate, right?
Yes.
There's PACs, I know PACs are a long story, but is there a place that at least attempts to figure out who's supporting, who's funding the PACs?
Well, that is some of the issue, and that's why I'll be honest with you. I think we need to overturn Citizens United. I actually have signed on to co-sponsor legislation that we should add it into the Constitution as an amendment that we're overturning Citizens United to get money out of politics. The problem with Citizens United, there are many, which one is just the flooding of money into our political system. But a lot of these PACs and what they refer to as super PACs don't have to disclose their donors in real time, as I have to disclose mine on a quarterly basis as a candidate. So I would say at the very least, there should be full transparency. But I think what we really ultimately want is overturning Citizens United to help us get this big money out of politics.
That sounds like a plan.
Yeah.
Another question that came in is, why has it taken 20 years to pass this legislation? Is it because of the Senate? And did we never have, in the 20 years, did the Democrats not have a Senate that would be willing to pass it?
Yeah, this, we did attempt it. I mentioned the Employee Free Choice Act. That was a very similar bill to the PRO Act. That was under President Obama when we did have the House and the Senate. But again, I would say that 60 vote threshold was the challenge that we faced. It passed out of the House, came close, very close to getting to that 60 votes. But that's ultimately what we need. I will say it's been an interesting observation this time around. You see some Republicans, and I agree with Josh Hawley on absolutely nothing, but I would say, except he has been somewhat supportive of union organizing and collective bargaining. So he has signed on to some of this legislation. Because of that 60 vote threshold, we might find ourselves with some strange bedfellows if we're aligned on some of these issues. I think it's very hard to find these folks, but I think the best thing we can do is in November elect the biggest majorities we can possibly get so we don't need those guys.
Okay. Another question that came in while you were talking.
Yeah,
So
sure.
labor support is part of FDR's second Bill of Rights.
Yeah.
Hopefully that makes sense to you. And will
Yep.
Democrats run on all of what's in those Bill of Rights?
Well, we should. And I'll say, one of the biggest issues I think we've had as the Democratic Party is we've lost our way on a lot of issues that impact working people. I think we need to get back to that foundation of helping people that are struggling every day, people that aspirationally want to get into the middle class. They might be working class folks now and they're looking for a better opportunity or a better job or better benefits. We want to help people get that leg up into getting into the middle class. And I think that's fixing our broken healthcare system. That's fixing, one of the most alarming things that I saw about a week ago was a new Social Security report came out that showed the Social Security Trust Fund by 2032, if we don't put more money into it, there could be an immediate cut of 24% across the board on Social Security benefits come 2032. We need millionaires and billionaires to pay into that fund to make it solvent. And I think these are some very big challenges. When I say 2032, that not too long ago felt far off. That's not far off. We're looking at not, 6 years away. I mean, so we need to elect people that are going to understand the struggles of working people, that safety net, Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, OSHA, good safety, a federal government that is fully funded to do worker protections like OSHA. Those things don't sound important until something happens to you on the job. And I often say people to constituents at home, because I worked at the UFCW, I've actually been on a kill floor. I've seen the dangerous work that people that work in meat processing facilities face every single day. And the best thing they have going, I think, when they walk into that job is they know they've got a union contract to protect them, that they'll be able to leave their job safely at the end of their shift. And I think those are the issues that as a party we get back to. We're going to win back some of these working class folks that we might have lost in previous elections.
All right, thank you.
Yeah.
Right. Thank you, Congresswoman Bazinski. I know that
Thank you.
you just got off a flight, and I know that you do have to go. So thank you for joining us today. And,
Thanks.
we look forward to supporting you in the upcoming election and all of the initiatives that you're taking on.
Thank you, guys. Thank you. Thanks for all you do.
You
Bye.
rock,
See you
as
later.
always.
Thank you. Thanks, Marcy.
Okay, our next speaker is Bill Luby. Bill Luby has been the political director of the Illinois AFL-CIO since 2002, after serving as the organization's communications director for 6 years. The political department of the Illinois AFL-CIO is primarily charged with educating and mobilizing the nearly 900,000 union members and 1.7 million union family members around issues and campaigns that affect the state's working people. Luby attended Lincoln Land Community College and graduated from Eastern Illinois University. He worked as a journalist in Mount Vernon for 6 years before joining the Illinois AFL-CIO. Luby served 18 years in the Air National Guard as a combat arms instructor and public affairs specialist. He was elected twice, including serving 2 years as president of the Springfield Public School District 186 Board of Education. He currently serves on the Civil Service Commission for the City of Springfield. I'd like to introduce Bill Luby.
Well, thanks, Patrick. I'll uh, I'll just kind of go through where we're at, what the Illinois AFL-CIO's role is first. And, you know, there's a national AFL-CIO. It's like set up like a lot of union organizations. There's an international union, the National AFL-CIO. There's our state affiliate, which every state has a state AFL-CIO. So we're for Illinois. And then there are also regional AFL-CIO bodies called Central Labor Councils, which Illinois has. We've done some consolidation, but there are more than 20 in Illinois of those Central Labor Councils, which are basically some are just one county, and like the Chicago Federation of Labor is Cook County. And then some serve multiple areas. I think we have the Southern Illinois Labor Council has over 20 counties in it. Um, so we're the state AFL-CIO, and our role mainly is to carry out the mission of the AFL-CIO. So for those of you that don't know what the AFL-CIO is we are basically, how I describe it, as a union of unions. So the union, we have a number of those international unions that are affiliated with the state AFL-CIO. And so we're basically a gathering point for all the unions. And if anyone knows Illinois, and the union movement is as diverse as Illinois is. So, there are school teachers in Chicago, electricians in Southern Illinois, laborers on the highways, just as many different occupations as you can think of. The labor movement represents in Illinois. So, as you would expect, there isn't always total agreement on everything, but where we do agree and where we can mobilize around workplace issues is where the AFL-CIO gathers and our forces and makes sure that we're all working together and pressing forward on it. That's also the beauty of the labor movement too, and like I said, much like the diversity of Illinois, it's many different pieces and many different voices. But the one thing, we've done plenty of polling and plenty of focus groups. The one interesting thing about, despite like the political spectrum that's found in the labor movement, and despite the demographic spectrum found in the labor movement, the regional spectrum, we're in all 102 counties. Some more than others, but in every one of them, and in a voting block in every one of them. But despite all of that, the what we have found over the past many years, we've been polling this for the better part of 15 years now, every time we poll, which is at least every other year, that union members trust their unions. So overwhelmingly and across all demographic um, uh, barriers or demographic spectrum. So, like to the tune of 88%. So it's not nothing. And so we believe that by sticking to the issues, that we're going to, that that's our gathering spot. That's the place where we can make everything, be cohesive in Illinois and move forward on that. I know Nikki mentioned the uh, workers' rights amendment. We worked very hard on that, and got it passed and into the state's Bill of Rights. So we start with the issues and end with the issues, and along the way, we work on the candidates that support those issues, and we support those candidates, and we build our whole political program around that. So that way, we'll circle around, we'll help get people elected, we'll help mobilize, but it isn't that way. It isn't around one person, and it isn't around one election. It's around building something for a long, long time, which is around these issues. Because I guarantee you, a lot of these issues we were fighting for 100 years ago, and we still are. So, there's fights for public education. There's the healthcare fight. I was reading a book on Truman, um, a couple of months ago that I finished up. I mean, that was a fight that Harry Truman was making, and Roosevelt was making, and Johnson, and even Nixon made a pitch for it at some point. So these are issues that are just the fight is constant, and we do make progress, but that's really the goal of our organization is the mobilization of those union members and their family members first, but also not to the exclusion of working people that may not be in unions yet. So it's just a matter of mobilizing all people that are working and all people that have those common goals of making their lives better, and advancing the cause of every one of their neighbors and their communities. A couple of things I wanted to mention. As I think one of the prompts that I got was, why is it still essential now or relevant now? I don't remember the terminology, but when you look at, and Nikki hit on this, a lot of what I'm going to be saying is sort of is backing her up. So she did such a fine job. But in the states where people's livelihoods are the best, that includes wages, that includes access to health care, less uninsured, more paid leave, more paid time off for family, um, uh, more pension levels, all of those sort of standards of living um, are better in the states where the density of unions is highest. So there's a sort of, the tide is maybe the labor movement, and it can be lifted through the actions of our work and all the work of the organizations like yours and others that are all working sort of toward these common goals on bringing up, is expanding that middle class, and making sure that everybody's sharing in the prosperity, and that we're focused on what we can do to advance the cause of working people, because it is, like I said, it is sort of a constant battle. A lot of these issues I hear, we've been battling them over and over and over again. But then you look back and you see that there's been progress. So it isn't, I don't want to come across as the grim reaper here on policy, but there is progress, especially in a state like Illinois. And you guys talked about it at the top of this, and Nikki hit on it too, is that there have been great advances in Illinois, great protections from what's been going on federally. And Nikki did a great job on that. I won't go, relitigate that either, but the one thing I also want to say about Trump and the Trump administration is he took away collective bargaining rights for potentially 1 million federal employees. So that's not nothing either. He just stripped them because he thought he could. He's completely re-engineered, as Nikki talked about, the NLRB. For one, when he got in the second term, the first thing he did was grind it to a halt by not allowing them to have a quorum. So nothing was done for a long time. And then he, of course, put, appointments in that were anti-union. So now it's just shooting down union elections left and right. So when you can't have access to becoming a union member or trying to use that avenue, that legal avenue to lift your family and your coworkers up, it's not fair. And it's something that needs to be fixed. And again, I'm not going to harp on this too much because you'll probably hear from Steve and others. One of the major pieces, the way you start fixing things is labor law reform. And that is the PRO Act. The PRO Act does it on a number of levels. Again, I'm not going to go deeply into it because you already got some of that. But that's sort of the beginning of the reforms that need to be made is we need to make it fair. That the PRO Act isn't it's Protecting the Right to Organize Act, which is what it stands for, but it's really just evening up things, which is what government should be doing. It's skewed too much in terms of management and in terms of the corporations to be able to drag out, to make things miserable for anyone that wants to join a union. It's one of the few legal rights, I'm sure, that you just simply can't exercise without a bunch of red tape. So really, the PRO Act is the beginning of sort of clearing the path toward people being able to exercise their legal right to organize. It isn't forcing it upon anyone. It's just simply allowing them to do that. And as we know with the data I gave you in terms of the states, that's also a clear path for lifting people up and into the middle class and into, a better life for them and their community. I also just want to say before I stop that, it doesn't just begin and end with, the one thing I want to give some kudos here also in Illinois is, and the labor movement and like organizations like yourselves and others, the many partners we've had, is election law here. We're seeing and hearing in a lot of other places around the country the great difficulty people are going to have with voter suppression, the potential for it, the threats of it, and the actual exercise of it that we're seeing in a lot of states that can't stop it. So we've always, and I say we, I mean everybody. The coalitions here in Illinois have been, strong standard bearers for making elections open, making them accessible, making them easily so people can easily take part in them on any level. So that's that kind of that I wanted to make sure I specifically talked about that because that opens the door to everything else. So when we can do that, and so I appreciate all of your work on that, and there's still more to be done here, even here in Illinois on election law. But I just wanted to make sure I talked about that too, and I hope I didn't go over my time, so I'm done. Thanks, Patrick.
Thank you, Bill.
Yeah.
I'm going to hand it over to Marcy to introduce our next speaker. For those of you that have questions, go ahead and put them into the chat.
Yeah, and we will have questions for everyone else after all the speakers are done. And thank you, Patrick. Jim Dixon has been involved in the labor movement for many years. His first union job was as a member of Laborers Local 477 in Springfield, where while working, he often served as union steward on jobs. Following several years in the private sector, he worked at the state of Illinois. He is a past vice president, people chair of AFSCME Local 2600. He retired from the Illinois Department of Healthcare and Family Services. He served on the board of Springfield and Central Illinois Trades and Labor Council and is a past president. Previously, he was on the executive committee of the Springfield branch NAACP and a board of Faith Coalition for the Common Good. He is currently a member of the staff of Congresswoman Nikki Budzinski. Please welcome Jim Dixon. Huh. Jim, are you?
Jim's on mute.
Oh, okay. Is he made a co-host? Patrick, is Jim a co-host?
Jim, you are a co-host. You should be able to unmute yourself.
He's
There you go.
unmuted. Jim, are you connected? Is your phone connected to your car audio perchance? Has your phone connected automatically to your car audio?
Yeah, so I'll just disconnect from my car.
Oh, no, stop.
We can hear you now?
Yeah, we can. Yeah. Now, yeah, you're okay now.
Okay, so I disconnected from the car. So I've been a union guy for a long time, and I'll give you a couple of reasons. Many years ago, my parents worked in a small grocery store. My mom and dad worked for a guy for 30 years, and when the guy decided to retire, he wanted to sell the store. It didn't make sense for dad to buy. And so my dad was basically, after building somebody else's business, out of work. Fortunately, he went to work for the state of Illinois, Department of Agriculture, and he's one of the wonderful people that went around and made sure at the grocery store that when you bought a pound of hamburger, you got a pound of hamburger. When I came home from Vietnam, I had a job with the state at first, and I was a guard in the Capitol building, and that's before we had unions. And every time you got a paycheck, you wrote out a check to the party. And I happened to be working on a job that was the Republican Party. So every paycheck, I had to write out a check. And one of the things that really bothered me, besides having to pay for my job, was I had no protections. And being a guard in the Capitol building years ago, we had things called selectric typewriters. And our supervisor would go around and he'd turn on a typewriter or he'd open a window to see if we caught that. And then if we didn't, he'd mess with us. Well, if you were in a union job, you would agree with that. You wouldn't have to put up with that kind of stuff. So that's just a couple of reasons that I really appreciate being in a union. You know, one of the things that I think is important about a union is that we have common goals, not just with each other in the union, but with everybody in society, all working class people. And I had an opportunity this last weekend to go to Chicago to the Labor Notes Conference, and there's something like 4,700 people there and a whole bunch of different workshops. One of them that really impressed me was a workshop called Solidarity Wins. And it's a workshop for working class people. And we're talking about facing an extraordinary economic crisis, you know, inflation, stagnant wages, mass layoffs, things of that. And that workshop is really good. And I'm going to be talking to Bill later this week about it because it's a program that we can use with union members and people in the community so that they understand who the real enemy is. Because lots of times, you know, what happens is, you know, they'll say, well, those darn union members, they're making too much money. They don't work as hard as I work and things like that. In fact, they all work hard. Everybody works hard. I think it's really important that we figure out how do we start having conversations with our neighbors about unions and about the working class. So I'm going to be talking to Bill a little bit more about this later in the week. I also want to mention that, you know, I know a lot of people that are, you know, in Indivisible don't know union members. And so I would encourage you to reach out, like Bill said, to your local labor council or to a local laborers hall, a union hall, maybe for the electricians, and have some conversations with them. And I'm sure that in every one of your areas that you work in, that there are union people who would be glad to come and talk about the same issues that you're talking about today in Indivisible, and how they're the same issues that they have every day. Because, you know, quite frankly, it's hard to go to work and come home and not know if you're going to have a vacation. It's really hard to go to work and then go to the grocery store and buy groceries today. And so we share a lot of things in common. And I think that's really important that we start looking at those things that we share in common. So I'll stop there.
Short and sweet. Wow. You rock. You rock, Jim. Okay. Well, yeah, but still, I know you're in your car, but if you can still stay on for questions after our last couple speakers, that would be great. I'm gonna have Patrick take over.
Yeah. Well, I stopped here where I stopped because I wanted to pull off, and I'm going to be getting into Macoupin County, and the phone service is not great there.
Oh, okay. Well, hopefully you'll still be able to come back on
Yep.
and
Yep.
answer questions.
Okay.
Okay. Thanks, Jim. You rock as always. I'm going to turn it over to Patrick.
Thank you, Marcy, and thank you, Jim. Our next speaker is Steve Campbell. Steve is the Legislative and Political Director for the Local 881 UFCW, the United Food and Commercial Workers. Steve has extensive experience in Illinois politics, specifically down ballot races. Steve served as the Illinois Senate Democratic Victory Fund political director, where he managed the operations of the Illinois Senate Democrats. He also served as the Illinois State Director for Elizabeth Warren's presidential campaign. Steve also worked in several roles at the Illinois State Capitol. He lives in Arlington Heights with his wife, Rachel, who runs her own political consulting firm, and their kids, Lillian and Fletcher. I'd like to introduce Steve Campbell.
Thank you very much, Patrick, and Indivisible and everyone. So cool to be here. Yes, I am a lifelong campaign hack, and have always loved politics in Illinois. And I have been so fortunate to work at UFCW for a little over 5 years now, to carry on a great tradition, like Nikki was saying, of political folks in UFCW. So we are the grocery store union in Illinois. Local 881 is statewide. We represent about 32,000 workers throughout Illinois and some in Congressman Marvan's district in Northwest Indiana at the Strachan Van Til. Our main two contracts are Jewel and Mariano's. We've got a lot of Schnucks downstate and a lot of smaller grocery stores, also some pharmacies. We also, especially downstate in Southwest Illinois, have a lot of food production plants, places that go almost 24 hours a day. And like Nikki was saying, some places that are rough to work in. And you're just trying to get through your shift safe. And we are also the cannabis union in Illinois. So over the last several years, we've been able to organize several dozen dispensaries throughout the state. And we are working hard to try to make sure that this is actually an equitable industry in Illinois and one that you can make careers out of as well. So we are super proud that our executive board is made up of a majority of folks from the stores. We are a member-driven union. Our president, Steve Powell, prides himself on good contracts and no strikes, and knock wood. We're continuing to get through that while representing our unions, our members with high quality service. But like I said, we are a statewide union. So if you go to our Lake County Stewards Conference, it's going to look a lot different than our downstate, Stewards Conference in Madison County. I like to say we're kind of the bridge between the trades and the service unions and the public sector unions that maybe everybody thinks of when they hear the word union. That puts us in a really unique position. And we like to be there. We're kind of the purple between the blue and the red. So something I really didn't appreciate until I started working for a union that all our members are striving for is retiring with dignity. That's one of the main things that I work on every day and that I keep in mind. We provide a pathway to retirement for folks who work really hard, but otherwise probably would not have one. And I think that I never would have thought I'd be hearing this, but I'm already hearing about the millennial retirement crisis. And I think that that's something that we're all going to be dealing with. So we represent folks who have worked at our union. We have 50-year members. And then we've got folks who are 16 and 17 and who are probably going to be working with us their entire life. So always new challenges, dealing with changes in that. We work on a lot of essential issues. Of course, as the grocery store union, one of the main things we do right now is work on food security stuff. I mean, there are food deserts all over, not just around Chicago, but in huge swaths of the state. We were essential and we helped lead a first of its kind public grocery store initiative that Governor Pritzker signed a couple years ago, bringing $20 million for a pilot program to put 3 publicly owned grocery stores in food deserts. The first one down in Venice, Illinois, is just about to break ground. So we're hoping that takes off, and we would love it if the city of Chicago did the same and we were able to work with them to open up. So we know the space is there, and we know the wherewithal is there, so we would love to pursue that as well. In addition to working with our members all the time, we also try to wield as much political power as we can to get things done for people and working people in Illinois. AFL-CIO President Tim Dre is a UFCW dues-paying member and former political director. Lisa Hernandez, State Rep Lisa Hernandez, who also chairs the Democratic Party of Illinois, is a UFCW member. Of course, Congresswoman Budzinski. And then my boss, Steve Powell, who is a 40-year UFCW member, also served as the international political director for a while as well. We have been able to use that power, like I said, to legalize cannabis in Illinois. We helped lead the charge to pass a statewide paid time off law in Illinois, the Chicago Fair Work Week, things like that. And then we also provide a lot of on-the-ground help to candidates. We still believe that knocking doors helps. We provide bodies for whatever events or direct actions are going on. We were instrumental in providing volunteers and helping run the DNC last year as well. So, and probably most importantly, I think we used our power to beat back a possibly disastrous merger where a couple of years ago, our two biggest contracts, Albertsons and Kroger, were trying to merge. We would have lost probably 20% of our union. And we were able to, with AG Raul, the great Lena Khan, came to Illinois, and we campaigned, and we were able to beat that off until they obviously imploded and greed. They destroyed themselves with greed, basically, and now here we are. So in Springfield is where I probably do most of my work, and just want to talk a little bit about what we've got going on there right now. One of the biggest issues that took off this year nationally that we were able to take advantage of is a interest in banning surveillance pricing. I'm not sure if anybody saw, but it's becoming very clear that especially online, but even in stores, is becoming very easy for companies to charge different people different prices for the same goods, even right on top of each other. There was recently a study done by a More Perfect Union where they had 5 folks sit in a room together and order the same grocery list from the same grocery store on their phones, and they all got different bills. They all got different amounts. It is not because they're a part of loyalty programs and they're getting different discounts. These are certain people getting discounts for certain things, and certain people being charged more based on their perceived ability to pay. We were able to pass a strong surveillance pricing ban through the Senate, and it is sitting on a concurrence vote waiting for the House's approval right now, and we're hoping that gets done in veto session. We're also looking, one of the delivery mechanisms for surveillance pricing is these electronic shelf labels that you'll probably see rolling out in a lot of stores. This gives these stores the ability to change their prices in real time. We have some evidence that there was a store that changed their prices on certain goods up to 100 times in one day. And so this is, folks who are on a budget and they have every dollar that they're going to spend mapped out at the store. If they go get $100 worth of groceries, it could be $120 by the time they get to the checkout lane. And obviously that causes all kinds of problems. We've seen evidence that it can affect people's bills by up to 23%. So this coupled with the explosion of self-checkouts and the automation of the grocery industry, these are affordability and privacy issues. We found that they're just pretty popular across the board. And while I think that a lot of times in labor, we're trying to tell folks to avoid talking about certain, whatever you want to call them, wedge issues, stick to the kitchen table, stick to the cookie cutters issues. Like, these aren't cookie cutter issues. This is important. People's right to privacy and whether or not people can afford to put food on the table is something that everyone has to deal with, no matter what else you have going on in your life. So we would never tell people to shy away from important issues, but we are always trying to tell folks to try to find as much common ground as you can. And these are powerful, popular issues that we would love to continue talking about. So to wrap up, for me, I mean, we're always looking for how active folks, and the fact that 70 plus people have shown up to a Zoom on a Monday night. You guys are obviously incredibly active and dedicated folks. But how can people like you help unions? In addition to picket line solidarity and local calls to action, things like that. I would say, we have had a decimated Springfield press corps, and the Chicago corps doesn't pay attention to issues. It's the state issues. Um, Pay attention to local issues. Talk about local issues. And a lot of times that's going to involve finding new media sources. I love NPR. I love a lot of traditional media sources, but if the primary showed us anything, if people are getting their news from new places. I was so proud that the DNC credentialed content creators as media members last year. I think that we need to do more things like that. There are folks like a place like I was saying, A More Perfect Union, Labor on the Line, download TikTok. It took me a long time, and I begrudgingly did it last year. But this is how people are getting their news, and there is legitimate, real stuff going on there. So I would say do that, and then also connect with your. I think Bill said this. Connect to your central labor, or maybe sorry, Jim. Connect to your central labor councils. We had a lot of long dormant CLCs in Illinois that the AFL-CIO is at the state level has done a great job of activating. Ours up here in Lake and McHenry is really active in the community. It's a great way to kind of depoliticize labor and get out and help community members and make connections with folks. Food pantries, always make a plug for food pantries. Wear your labor stuff, wear your indivisible stuff, wear your progressive stuff to these places, but show that you're getting involved in serving people on the ground. That's all I have. Would love to answer any questions that folks have whenever it's time. So thanks a lot for having me. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Stephen. And we have one more speaker, and then we'll go to questions. Leslie Cabrera is a third-year PhD student in the history department. She's joined the Graduate Student Employees Union, the GEO, last year, and is now the new Solidarity Committee co-chair. As part of the Solidarity Committee, Leslie cares about building connections with other coalitions and community members outside of the University of Illinois. As a proud daughter of immigrants, issues regarding immigration and international workers on campus are always at the forefront of Leslie's mind. Through the GEO, she hopes to continue supporting immigrant and international graduate students and amplifying their voices. Please welcome Leslie Cabrera.
Hi, everyone. Good evening. I hope everyone's doing okay. I've been enjoying the panel so far. So let's just dive into it. Thank you for the intro. So just a quick, small history on the GEO. The Graduate Employees Organization formed in 1995. So we've been here for a minute and we do have a good presence. Currently, as of 2026, we do represent about 2,800 graduate workers. We aim to protect all workers, including TAs, teaching assistants, graduate assistants, pre-professional graduate assistants, and RAs or research assistants. So basically all graduate workers on campus. We bargain in good faith with the university to try to get these protections for everyone. And just something that a lot of people hear about with the GEO is that we did go on strike in 2018. I wasn't here for that, so I just wanted to mention it quickly, but it was a minority strike and it lasted around 2 to 3 weeks. And it was to keep tuition waivers, which have historically allowed marginalized and people of color to even attend a school like this. So that's just one really big example of like a strike that we've had in our history that brought a lot of students together to fight for worker rights. And moving on, GEO is very well connected with other unions, and we actively work together to push forward on certain issues that are really important to us. So some of the other unions that we work with and other coalitions include the Campus Labor Coalition, AFSCME, NTFC, the AFL-CIO, and SEIU. Those are just a few organizations that we work with, but we are in constant communication with a bunch of other organizations and even undergraduate organizations. It's a big network and we talk to a lot of people, but these connections are super important when it comes to collective action and getting the ball rolling on certain things. So for tonight, I wanted to talk a little bit about the ICE Out campaign that GEO put together alongside other unions. So the ISOC campaign began at a GEO general membership meeting, which means that our members brought this concern up to us, and they were concerned about international and non-citizen workers' safety on campus. After drafting demands, the GEO worked with the Campus Labor Coalition to develop a broader campaign led by various unions and organizations on campus. The ISOC campaign was spearheaded by GEO, the SEIU Local 73, the Campus Faculty Association, and the Non-Tenure Faculty Coalition. And the visiting academic professionals as well. And this campaign has four demands. We demand that the university commits to keeping buildings safe from ICE and custom and border protections. We also demand that the university admin commits to providing logistical support and a pathway for degree completion to graduate workers facing deportation. We also demand that the university shall commit to taking legal action and providing unwavering support on behalf of students and workers if they do have their visas revoked or are detained, injured, or even killed by DHS/federal agents. And lastly, we demand that the university helps us with the cancellation of contracts and cessation of collaboration with and or divestment from any corporation or security sectors, tech companies, etc. So we want them to stop working with any tech companies and other companies that work with ICE. This last demand has seen a lot of traction at many universities across the US, especially during March Madness when basketball teams were being shuttled across the country using Global X planes. And UIUC also does that. So they would fly a lot of their athletes on Global X, which, if you didn't know, Global X operates a large majority of their ICE deportation flights, which we just don't agree with that, right? It's a very unsafe thing, and we don't want our money going into that type of thing. And last year, the University of Illinois spent $1.3 million dollars flying their athletes to away games using Global X flights. So that was a lot. I know I'm like speed running through this. But what have we done since then? This happened around the spring semester. We held a press conference at a local airport during March Madness to raise awareness of this issue and also to get more eyes on the situation. Of course, press conferences means that there's more coverage on this, more social media posts on this, which is really good at just showing what the university is doing, and they don't like that. We also held a kickoff rally in April where we launched our petition with the demands that I just mentioned. And lastly, we held a rally on May Day, which is when we delivered the official petition to the administration. As of now, we have not really heard from the university administration regarding the petition. We are really using the summer to work within and across our unions to continue to organize workers around these demands and our contract campaign. The GEO is currently in bargaining with the union and admin, and many of these demands are reflected within our proposal. And like I just mentioned, we are in our full contract bargaining. Unfortunately, as of now, admin has rejected many of our proposals, arguing that ICE on campus or deportation are not workplace issues, which is completely, unacceptable. They also simply just don't like what we are proposing, especially when it comes to protections for international and undocumented folks. However, our membership is very interested in this issue because 56% of our membership is international grad workers. So this is a very pressing issue that we need to continue putting pressure on. And the reason why I chose to focus on this specific petition is because it's a great example of how GEO is working with other unions and organizations across campus to fight for everyone's rights as workers. We offered support through listening to our members and advocated for those who are in a vulnerable situation right now. Also, none of these issues can be tackled alone. It would be really difficult to get any movement on this issue if we were working independently. So, I mean, to me, this just shows that building networks is imperative to the labor organization movement, because we can call upon each other when we need help, and that is where our power lies. The fact that we can call up on our other unions that we know of and work collectively on a certain issue is really powerful. I think that collective action helps create the future that we want, and there's a lot of power in this. And so I think the CLC petition is a great example of that. Again, we're still working on it, we're still pushing through, we're still trying to put pressure on the administration. So we'll see where this takes us, but that's kind of where we're at, and I wanted to bring this and share with everyone tonight. And I think that is all I have for everyone. So thank you for listening.
Thank you, Leslie. You rock. So, and we're going to start doing Q&A now. All of you, all of our basically all of our speakers really rocked. They were awesome. Anyway, so I'm going to turn this over to Linda. Please, anybody who has questions, they will please put them in the chat. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Marcy. For some of these questions, there's definitely more than one speaker who could answer, but what I might do is call in somebody, and then if others want to chime in after the answer, you can go ahead. The first one is about law enforcement. So the strongest union backing that Donald Trump has had has come from law enforcement, border security organizations, and significant rank and file support. So is it worth even trying to reach unions that vote against their interests? And I'm going to throw that one at Bill to start.
Thank you for that. Unions, we have different unions that have sort of different cultures. So there's no doubt about that, depending on a lot of variables. I think that what my belief is that we stick to the issues, and despite, again, this, you can call me idealistic a little bit on this, but despite some maybe leadership stances, and some of them based upon personal political preferences and things like that, I think if you stick to the issues and you stick to the messaging about those issues, I think that you get through to enough parts of the membership that at least that's what our whole program is based around, is member communication and voter contact around issues. So I think the issues win. And I think that, despite maybe proclamations and things, I still hold that, and I've seen the polling that, there's no union that has like 100% record of members voting like completely one way, even if their leaders are, just if they're Trump backers or whatever. So the issues will win. Again, call me idealistic, but I've seen it. If we continue building on that, I think that is something that we will win the day on.
Okay. Anybody else want to add to that? If not, I'll move on to the next question, which is sort of similar. This is relating to the Teamsters. And the opinion of the person asking the question is that leadership has supported some pretty conservative things in the past few years. So Bill, I'll actually throw it at you again, because I assume it's the same answer, that leadership may lean one way, but it's really convincing people around the issues.
And I'm not hedging here, but I will say that the labor movement, as I kind of opened with, is very diverse. And the one thing you'll see, I know Steve talked about it a little bit too, is like every union has different priorities, specific priorities to their union, that may not translate to the larger voting, America, voting bloc. So they've got to work on those things, and there are, particular reasons. I'm not gonna get into the reasonings. Each union does whatever they do, but I've always been very proud of the fact that there's a lot of diversity, including political opinion, which I don't think is a bad thing, as long as it, it stays in the policy realm and it stays in the realm of like, let's get a better piece of legislation out of this. So I think at the end of the day, I do think the issues win. And I think if we stay out of the personality battles, that's always where I've tried to keep the program. And I think that the Teamsters are no different. They're a very large union and a very diverse union as well. So um, you know, they have issues that are specific to Teamsters, but they're also good participants in sort of the larger policy initiatives of the labor movement as well.
Okay, thanks. This is around the Postal Workers Union, and so I don't think any of you are directly involved with that. But the question is, it was pretty strong during the 80s. Is it even functional now? And I'll start with Steve on that one, Stephen on that one, and
I'm sorry, was what even functional now?
the Postal Workers Union, like, are they even functional at this point?
I mean, as far as with us at the AFL, we work with the letter carriers union. I know that specifically in Will County, I had some great experiences working with them. I don't think I know that I'm not an expert at all, but I know the post office is a mess, but I don't think it has anything to do with the union. But I'm not sure. I'm sure like anything else, it varies local to local. There are really active and engaged locals, and then there's locals that you don't even know that they exist sometimes. So
Okay. Anybody else want to add to that? Oh, okay, I'm going to skip around a little bit because there's some general questions that I think are great. And this one, from your perspective, and actually all four that are still on the call probably will have a perspective on this, but do you think the general public has an overall positive understanding of the purpose of unions?
I yeah, I think so. I actually to go back even to the first couple questions, I think that unions and your union tends to be way more popular than the candidates that the unions are supporting or not supporting. And I'm not to bash Democrats here, and I know that generally, 99.9% of the time we end up endorsing Democrats because they're better for working people. But I think that a lot of times some of this is on the candidates themselves to do some of this work too. So, but anyway, not to get off track. But yeah, I think that right now, as opposed to even maybe 20 years ago, and certainly 30 years ago, people have a lot stronger of an opinion of unions and that they're on the side of working people, I think.
And just to add to that, Steve's right on. I think the polling shows that particularly in Illinois, and I've seen some national polling as well. I mean, the general public that's not in unions are very, very by in the 70s. I've seen usually mid 70s supportive of unions and the work that they do. And I think, there's a negative, I shouldn't say negative, but I think some of that is exacerbated by the situation we're in now with wealth inequality, and there's a lot of real exploitation going on. And I think that people view unions as again, I would certainly say is appropriate as a countervailing force to that sort of, big company just stomping on people, not paying their taxes. I mean, it's just been this sort of deregulation nightmare in the last, few years. So, so I do think that unions are viewed it sometimes as a bit of a roller coaster on that over the years, depending on what's going on in the cultural, realm. But it's certainly on a pretty big uptick right now.
So I'm going to ask Leslie, since you're at colleges, you're at a college, from the younger person perspective, how do you think college students think about, what do they think about unions?
This is a great question because I'm also a historian. So actually, what I had learned, right, was that basically after Reagan's presidency, people joining unions kind of like went down. And we see that a lot now too with big corporations like Amazon that are actively trying to destabilize unions. And so I think that at least for college students, there is this certain level of fear that we have. I can attest to like my journey joining the union. I did not want to join the union at first because I just was like, this is political. This is too political. I actually don't know what unions do. I know that they're taking money from me, but I actually don't know where that money goes. And it wasn't until I had organizing conversations with people who like actually broke everything down. And that is difficult to do right now at the university level. It requires us going into people's offices physically, and I've done this where we like knock on people's offices and ask them, hey, do you know about the GEO? What's your knowledge on unions? And it's pretty 50-50 right now. Some people have heard about us. Some people don't know we exist. Some people have never, heard of a union. They don't know what unions really do, which is, I think it's an uphill battle for us that we really need to bridge that gap because um yeah, I mean, I remember reading about like Amazon abusing and exploiting its workers, and it wasn't until someone formed a union against Amazon that they were able to like get some protections. And that was a really good example of the younger folks coming together and like realizing the value in unions. But right now, we like that is actually a really big struggle that we face, that we are I think we only have 28% membership, which is really low. We need to get more than that if we even want to think about a strike, but it's looking pretty 50-50 right now. And we need a little bit more, I think, political education on what unions are for folks.
Thanks. Yeah, I thought that might be the case. Um, this one actually, I think it was Stephen that mentioned this, the report about the stores changing different prices. Somebody wanted to know if you have any links to research reports or things that you could share with people in the chat, or maybe get it to Patrick and then we can share it.
I think actually Steve left.
Steve did
Oh,
have to go, but we'll follow
oh,
up with
okay.
Steve on
Yeah.
that question.
Okay. All right.
Anyway, Jim is back on the call too now, so.
Okay. All right. The next one specifically was asked of Bill. Um, there was a question based on something you said. Do you not favor endorsing individual candidates? Or will you do that based on the fact that they're supporting a policy or policies that you support?
I'm not sure I completely got that, but I am in favor of endorsing candidates. So,
Okay.
Which honestly, the most recent thing last week our board took action to not do any endorsements right now. For there's some disappointment in the lack of movement in state government on some labor policies that we're pushing. It doesn't mean we won't, but our board it took that position as of last week. So, and we're fresh off of session, and so we're working towards that. But as a general rule, which I think is what the question was more geared at, yeah, I mean, our goal with the political program is much like I know Leslie was talking about. It's like it's an education process of like, and the goal isn't just November. The goal is sort of issue education so we really try hard year around to talk to members about what's going on in the federal government, what's going on in the state government, and even locally with the central labor councils, so people can connect those issues with their daily lives, and the candidates and the people that are in office and hold them accountable. I always say, we always see people coming to the union halls on a Labor Day and they're all the best friend of unions and they have an uncle that was a plumber, but it's like, you know, you look at their voting record, and that's where we got to hold people accountable. So that's part of that process. So it where I think I might have lost some people is it begins with the issues and kind of ends with the issues because that's what lives on. But we connect the candidates along the way and make sure that our office holders are held accountable for their actions and the candidates are vetted for their support on labor and 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 larger societal issues. I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, no, I think there was a little confusion because of the policy discussion that you mentioned. So yeah, no, I think you clarified that. Thank you. Um, this could be open to you or Jim. Um, the questioner, I'll just read it because you might have a difference of opinion, but it says in 2024, the Dems abandoned the working class, and as a result, 41% of union members voted for Trump. The party then tried to hide the report. Commission, we won't talk about the report because who knows what that is all about. But while workers are now disillusioned with Trump, they are not gravitating to the Dems. So how do we correct this? How do we, it seems like, if you go back to the policy issue, and we have strong candidates in the Democratic Party that are definitely working for the working class. How do we get that messaging out there, and how are you doing it?
Well, I think Nikki really hit on that because we got to talk about kitchen table economics. I told her when she first started running, I said, people don't care about the far right and the far left so much is they want to know what you're going to get done for them. And people care about how much it costs for groceries, how much it costs for gas. Are they going to be able to take a vacation? And these are the things that the Dems have to get back talking about all the time. And I think, that's one of the points that Nikki made.
Okay, thanks. There's a question. So I think this might go to the PRO Act that we're trying to get passed, but the question is, what laws are there now to protect employees from retaliation when they are trying to organize? And maybe, Jim, you could take that one.
Bill, you want to take that?
Bill.
Because there's really,
Well, here's the problem is there are laws. So the problem is there are laws, but there are no teeth to them. And B, so that allows the employers. So there's supposedly not supposed to be threats made by the employers of moving to another country or moving out of town if you vote for a union. There's also laws that you're not supposed to be terminated or fired if you are union organizing. The problem is they can flout those laws and not be subjected to any real discipline, any real fines, any real teeth to them. So it isn't really the fact that the problems haven't been acknowledged even since back, in the Fair Labor Standards Act and all the things that were done under Roosevelt and improved under, Truman and Johnson and others. So, but the problem is, and this is what the PRO Act does. The other, there are other things too. So you can make it so miserable for these workers trying to, I think Leslie could probably comment. I mean, I remember, I've been around long enough. I remember when GEO organized over there. So it's a grueling process, and it shouldn't be. And as anyone knows, that's gone through a campaign or anything. I mean, if something is just so long and you can't see an end to it, and it's so grueling and so hard on your family and your life and your time, many people will give up and go away. They'll go take another job somewhere else. Or they'll get terminated for what is some trumped up reason on something else. So again, I kind of maybe hit a raw nerve here, but I mean, the problem is the PRO Act actually makes labor law that's enforceable and these companies actually have to abide by it rather than thumb their nose at it.
I think, Bill's made a really important comment there because, I was down at a mine worker strike in Alabama, and the governor the governor sent state troopers to escort scabs to the mine to take these jobs when these guys are on strike. If we had good labor laws that were enforced, that wouldn't happen.
All right, thank you. This question, I actually don't know if this is even um, allowed, but I'll read the question and then I'll ask my question. Does J.B. Pritzker help fund unions or other forms of organizing in a significant way? And I don't know if that question is related to him personally or as governor, but I'm thinking that the state can't give funds to unions, but can you guys, somebody basically answer the question about Pritzker himself, but also the laws about who can contribute to a union or their organizing work?
I don't know of like direct contributions to unions from politicians. Again, maybe I'm drawing a blank from somewhere, but I don't think, that's something that's sought generally. We certainly seek support, public support from elected officials. But in terms of monetary or financial support, I don't know that that's something I'm kind of would be drawing a blank on. I don't think that's something we typically ask for. And again, I'm not even sure the legalities there, but
That's what I was thinking.
yeah.
How is he from a supportive perspective? Let's ask that question as governor.
Well, there are, we've endorsed him. We early endorsed him the first time he ran. We endorsed him, so he's been supportive. And a friend of labor. Now, again, I'm not, it's a kind of like every other, relationship. It gets complicated over time, and there are some issues. He's been a sitting governor, and that doesn't get easier over time. I'm not making excuses for either the labor movement or Governor Pritzker, but we haven't agreed on everything all the time, but we do and have supported Governor Pritzker in the past, and he's been and has a good record with labor. But again, there are some issues that we have disagreed on as well.
Okay, I think we have time for one more question.
Can
Go
I
ahead.
just ask Leslie one question about about what's happening with the unions and right now at the university with the ICE Out petition. Have you are you still working on things?
Yes, we are still working on things. Actually, prior to this, the meeting starting here, we received a tons of messages from different people. This last bargaining session that we had, university admin was pretty much like, no, they don't want to hear anything about this, which was the second time they did this to us. Kind of shut it down, and we didn't hear that much movement after that. And so we're trying to pick this up again. And, we don't want to brush over this because it's very easy to brush international student worker rights under the rug if we focus on other issues. But I think that these issues are just as important as getting healthcare protections on overwork, getting fair wages. And so um, my other co-chair and I are going to be working on this even more, and I think it's going to require double the effort than we initially thought it would be. It was easy to get the petition out and get people riled up during the school year, but because it's summer, there's less folks on campus. I feel like it's slowly, I don't want to say dying out, but it's people aren't talking about it, and so now we have to think about new ways to get people, riled up about this again, because right now, as the summer is going on, a lot of research assistants are still international folks. And these are people who are afraid to even go back home during the summer because they don't know if they can come back to the university. And people are telling them, their own advisors are telling them, if you choose to go back home and you can't make it back, we're, washing our hands of this. We can't say anything about this. And so that's really disheartening to not be able to even go back home, right, for a month. And because of this. And so we're trying to find ways, new ways to get that spark going up again. which means we're gonna have to get a little bit creative on this. But we're certainly, at least I will not let this die out. But it means that we're gonna really have to work really hard this summer so that come fall we have a really good way of getting people riled up about this.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you, Leslie. Yeah. I hope that something comes out of it. Anyway, one thing we haven't mentioned is that we have co-hosts for this and they publicize it everywhere. We want to thank Champaign County Indivisible, Indivisible Evanston, Indivisible Greater West Loop, Indivisible Niles Main Township, and WSOFA Indivisible and State Line Indivisible. They advertise this for us everywhere and we are so grateful to them. And thank you, speakers. You all rock. Patrick?
Right. Thank you to Representative Bazinski. Thank you, Bill. Thank you, Steve. Thank you, Jim. And thank you, Leslie. This was very informative. And we will be following up with you just on ways that we can get more involved with the labor movement and supporting all of the great work that you're doing for working people across Illinois and across the country. Thank you all for joining. We do have a couple of announcements we're going to go through, and then we're going to close everything down. Again, please join us this weekend. We do have canvassing that we're going to be doing. We're doing carpool canvassing into the Illinois 16th Congressional District. It's our closest chance of a pickup here in Illinois. So we do want to make sure that we are throwing as much support behind Nolly as possible, who's running out in the 16th Congressional District. We're going to be driving, carpooling down into Bloomington to support him. We have a canvas site launching from DuPage County. We're launching from the Democratic Party of DuPage, DuPage's office in Carroll Stream. We also have carpools that you can do from anywhere in the state. So if you would like to meet us in Bloomington, you can meet us there at noon. You can sign up from the links that you will see in the chat, and they're also on our website as well. I'm going to hand it over to Marcy, who's going to talk about some of the other events.
Yeah. Anyone who lives anywhere near Champaign County, from July 17th through July 20th, we are having a Good Trouble Lives On weekend of action. It is a national call to action, and we have a really big one in Champaign County. There are 15 coalition members that are organizing this. Indivisible Illinois is in the coalition. It was started by Champaign County Indivisible, and Indivisible Vermilion County is also part of it, but also we have the NAACP, the local NAACP, and the local ACLU, and the local League of Women Voters, and several other groups are involved. We are organizing a series of teach-ins to educate the public on John Lewis's legacy, on voting, how elections are conducted in our county, gun violence, the Champaign County African American Trail, voting rights, reparations, as well as a town hall with the mayors of Champaign, Urbana, and Rantoul. And on Saturday, and the Saturday and Sunday part, the 18th and 19th, they're going to be in the Spurlock Museum, and there's going to be a tour of their current exhibit, Unfinished Revolutions: Living Stories of American Rights, on both on Monday and both on the Friday, the 17th, and Monday, the 20th. We will be having a resource fair at the Champaign Public Library. I will put a link in the chat to the Mobilize to give you a little bit of information on it, but there's going to be more information to come. If you do not live in Champaign County or anywhere near, and you would like to see some of this stuff, we are going to be live streaming all the stuff from the Spurlock Museum, which is a really awesome place, on Saturday and Sunday. So I'm going to turn it over to who's next. Who's next to say something?
I think it's me, Marcy. So
Okay.
reminder that tomorrow, Indivisible Evanston is having a forum. How do we win the midterms? Engaging youth and extending outreach. And I'm posting it right now.
All right, everyone. Thank you all for joining. And be on the lookout for our next event. Next month, we're going to be doing a special town hall on folks that have neural divergence. Please join us for that. You know how we can be supportive of folks that are neurodivergent. And we're looking forward to that panel coming up next month.
You guys all rock. and you speakers, you all rocked too. Everybody's awesome. Thank you so much for hanging with us.
Thanks, everyone.